Good morning, everyone. I really appreciate you joining us this morning. I have Mr. Campbell with me today. He is our APA. Andrew, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because maybe it's been a while since they've seen you. So.
Yeah, probably. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Andrew Campbell, Associate Principal of Administrative Services. Fancy title, which basically means that I do most of the safety and facility type stuff on campus, which includes discipline, attendance, our custodial staff. Right now, we're working on how to deal with COVID stuff while we're on campus, things of that nature. Glad to be here. Good to see you all.
Great. Normally I would have had Ms. Per, other associate principal, with us also, but she had a training she has to be at this morning, so she was off the hook. So the idea with today, I'm going to stop sharing real quick. The idea with what we're going to do today is just kind of talk about how this year has been going, from your perspective as a parent, some things that you wished as a school that we were doing better, or some things that are working. I will ask parents, we are recording this, and so this does get sent out, that if you have specific complaints about an individual teacher or something like that, that you not actually mention names while we are in this Zoom meeting. Anything that you have an issue with about an individual, we can certainly meet later and discuss that and work that out. So I don't want to say like, don't complain. I just ask that you not use names and call people out individually while we are in this Zoom meeting right now. So I guess I'll start with, just kind of my perspective. People always ask me, since this all started, but especially since school started in August, people will ask, like, oh, how's it going? And I never know quite how to answer that question. I feel like I'm just always like, well, it could be worse. So it's not great, but it could be a lot worse. So, that's kind of where I've been. I know as a parent myself, and Mr. Campbell also is a parent that has kids doing distance learning. I've shared, I have a kid in high school and I have a kid in middle school. It is a struggle. My kids it's okay. Like just everything. It could be better. I wish they were in regular school. Regular school is better. But I feel like we're making it, the best that we can. And Mr. Campbell, I don't know if you have anything to add about your perspective on how things have been going.
So yeah, I've got 3 kids in school. 2 of them are in high school, not at Piedmont, and one's in elementary school. It's been really fascinating for me to see like how different schools, how different groups are handling the working from home essentially. And given that we're as administrators rotating through who's on site each day, and it's been really fascinating because I can actually see my kids do their schoolwork, and it's vastly different than what my expectation would be when they're in a classroom. It hasn't all been perfect. Some of it's been good, breaks in the day and a little bit of a shorter class day, and then a lot of it's been really bad. They're just not really interacting with people, and that I think is made really difficult for them.
Yeah. So Virginia had put something in the chat that I think is interesting. I can say that the late schedule has been hard for my student, but allowing him time to adjust and offering different ways to communicate with teachers has been helpful. I think it's interesting that the late start has been difficult in Virginia. I don't know if you want to take yourself off mute and kind of expand on that. And I guess the reason I'm like, is, the late start, next year, we're still in conversations about what we're going to do next year. Honestly, I think we'll probably go back to our regular bell schedule next year, assuming that we're in person. But for the 22-23 school year, which is the year after next, it's California has passed a law that we have to have an 8:30 start time. So we will have a later start time. So I'm curious about what has been difficult about the later start. I don't know if Virginia, you want to share a little bit.
Sure. The later start is because he starts at what, like 10:15 on some days. So it goes until about 4 p.m.
Sure.
That's as far as the later start. It's not, the 8:30 would be fine. But I think he finds it very difficult to focus because he already has ADHD. And the medication wears off sooner than later when he takes it early. So that's one factor. And another thing is we're all out of school and out of work by that time, and here he is still trying to be in class, focusing while everybody else is going about their day.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I think that it's the Bell schedule that we have this year. It's because we still have the split start, and so, your son is on obviously a 2 through 7 schedule. So on, like, today is an odd day. He doesn't have a first period, which would start at 8:30. So yeah, he's starting at 10:15 and then going really late. I can totally see. I think, and so some of the conversations that we've had as a staff, and adjusting our bell schedule for the future to accommodate this late start. One of the things that we've talked about that I think honestly we're going to have to do is do away with our 7-period day as part, and that kind of gets complicated, and honestly that would probably be a totally separate Zoom with a principal topic when we get more into the weeds with that. Is because going to 4 o'clock is really difficult, and I totally get that. I think I've been lucky with my kids that they're pretty much done with school by 2, which has been helpful. I totally get what you're saying. It's not so much the actual start, but it's going late in the afternoon. I totally understand that. I had, school night council yesterday that starts at 4 o'clock, and I was like, oh my gosh, 4 o'clock meeting. This is terrible. So yeah, I totally
So
get that.
as a freshman and new to Piedmont, I figured this was just because of the distance learning.
Mhm.
Is that if he were in school on campus, would it go that late as well with the 7th period?
No, so our
Oh,
typical
okay.
bell schedule, because we didn't have a block schedule. And so our normal bell schedule, all the classes meet every day, and he would have gotten out, I'm looking at the schedule on the wall right now, like 3:10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
So
that's not too bad. I think it's just this distant learning that kind of, it's been difficult, but we've been able to manage and adjust. And like I said, the different ways of communication has also been super helpful. You can either, unmute yourself and speak. You can put through a chat. You can send an email. So just kind of however he's feeling that day. If he's willing to speak up, it's awesome that he has that opportunity. Or if he's really not feeling like speaking up, or out where everybody can hear him, he has the opportunity to put it in a chat, and still communicate. So that's been the one positive thing about distance learning.
yeah, I totally agree. And I think, you talk about things that once we go back to normal, what will stay. And that is something that I hope our students will keep, that they've gotten used to different ways of communicating. And so my hope is that they'd be a lot more comfortable, just emailing the teacher when they have a question and that sort of thing. I think that I know for myself as principal, like just doing, I always have met with the parents every single week. It used to be coffee with the principal. But I think I have found this year that doing this via Zoom, it's a lot more accessible because I do get to send out the recordings. And so parents that couldn't like come in person on a Wednesday morning, because I used to do them on Wednesdays because of work and whatnot, they can still get the information and hear what we talk about. And I think that that has been really, really nice. So I think there's some things that we've learned as a school community that have been very helpful. I know the counselors too, with their presentations, that they've found that like doing them via Zoom, like on a webinar type format, um, it's just a lot more accessible to parents, you know, where it used to be like, okay, you get home from work and you got to hurry back over to the school at 6:30 for this meeting. And like, you know, what are you doing with dinner and like that sort of thing. And just made it really difficult that there are things that we can now like that have seem easier to do to make things more accessible. Um, Amy made a comment, we like the distance learning schedule because if it's a regular early schedule, we'd have to get up very, very early for the 8:30 start time. Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, as a district, you know, back in the summertime, it was back in June, all of the principals in Eastside met together. There's 12 of us. And we actually wrote the bell schedule for this year. And we decided to go ahead and do the 8:30 start time, knowing that this California law was kind of in the future. I mean, it seemed like a good opportunity. Well, let's try it out. I mean, I think there's an issue, like we said, with the split start because some kids are going to 4 o'clock and that's very late. Definitely get it. But the 8:30 start time rather than our old schedule of 7:20. And I think, you know, next year, assuming that we go back to that our original bell schedule, that is going to be really early for some people, and it's going to be a struggle. I've always thought that 7:20 was super early. I'm not a morning person, and so I've never been a fan of it. Even when I was teaching, I never taught on an early start time because I don't like to do that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see with the start time, but because I think it will be an adjustment to have to go back to the 7:20. Um, yeah, we love that my kid gets a chance to talk to her teacher one-on-one if needed. I'm assuming you mean, this is Lan who said that, like with the tutorial. Lan, I don't know if you feel comfortable expanding on that. Like, is that during the tutorial time that your kids taking advantage of that?
Yeah, during Wednesday, usually they can, if they need it, they can talk to their, teacher, and based on their needs, they can talk about whether it's an assignment or, the test. They have some specific questions, so they can discuss with the teacher one-on-one. And also about English, they can discuss about their essay. What's the problem that, and she can, know what's wrong with it. So I think that's very good.
Yeah, I think that that's a real good point. And then we talk about like kind of going because I am in my mind operating under the assumption that come August we will be able to start school like normal. I think I mentioned this last week. Please, everybody, do what you can to make that possible. You know, do your part. I'm begging everybody because I really want us to be able to start school like normal in August. But one of the things, you know, looking at ways that we can keep that, you know, and maybe it's teachers offering and having posted office hours of like, this is when, you know, they are able for kids to come in and ask one-on-one questions. I think that that's a really, really valuable thing that not, unfortunately, not all students have taken advantage of it, but I think that the ones who do have found it really valuable. And I think the teachers have found it very valuable. Virginia, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I feel personally that it makes it easier for the students, especially I can speak for my student who's a boy, who wants to hang out with his friends and not say, hey, you guys, I got to go meet with the teacher, or I got to stay after school because I got to meet with the teacher, because it's just that stigma they have, or they want to go hang out with their buddies and they don't want to stay behind. They don't want to have to stay after school late to meet with the teacher. So it's just become very easy and, like you say, accessible doing it through Zoom, how we're doing it now. It may not be the same once you go back to school on campus. It would be a great option if that's offered, only because it still will allow them to ask questions and ask for help without telling the buddies like, hey, I gotta go get help. I don't understand my work or something, just just keeping that kind of more private to them. I feel
Yeah,
that would be helpful.
I'm so happy that we're having this conversation because honestly, it's not something that really occurred to me, and I'm like, why didn't it occur to me? I think that's such a great idea that teachers could still offer, even if we're in person, offer office hours via Zoom, and that like because a lot of times kids don't want to. You're exactly right. They don't want to. We only have a 30-minute lunch. And so if you have to spend 20 minutes of that talking to a teacher, that sucks. So, if teachers are able to do that, and then like for the teacher too, because a lot of times they also only have a 30-minute lunch. And they like that break. They need that break. They need a good bathroom. People, when they get into middle age, like and so this allows them to structure time that it's convenient for them, for students to come and get help. And they don't necessarily have to, they themselves physically stay in their classroom to do that, because they could do the Zoom from home. I think that that's a really great. I'm going to totally bring that up to the staff, and start talking about that and like ways that we can make that work.
I think that would be awesome, which totally understand. At the end of the workday with teachers, you guys have a 24-hour job, and you want some time to yourselves. But if there's time that can be dedicated to that, I think that would be awesome for the students. And maybe we could just try it out, do some sort of trial, and then follow up and see this is not working, or yeah, this is great. I have a great turnout.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, because after school things, can be difficult for some, like if you're a teacher that has small kids, you got to go pick them up for school, or you have to pick them up from your daycare or something, I mean, it's difficult at times. They have their own families. And so this, I think, Zoom and doing, things virtually definitely has its downside. But at the same time, it has its advantages. I know and I'm sure your kids have experienced this too. I mean, I know my own daughter, like she literally like rolls over in bed and turns on her laptop and she's in school. And so one thing that, I think we're all gonna have to like deal with as parents when we do go back in person is reintroducing like the time to actually get ready, and that you can't, like, it doesn't take 30 seconds to get to school, and so there is going to be that adjustment. But I know for myself, this is Thursdays and Fridays are the days that I'm at school, and I had an 8 o'clock Zoom meeting this morning. I actually went back to back. I had to leave that meeting, come straight into this one, but I had to rush because I had a meeting. Whereas normally when I don't normally have early meetings on Thursdays and Fridays. They're usually earlier in the week, and so it is like even for myself, like, oh, just come down, get my cup of coffee, and boom, I'm in the meeting. I don't have my commute, and so that will be an adjustment for us all. I think also not wearing sweatpants all the time, though. I don't know. I think maybe we'll start wearing sweatpants. I feel like society will be a lot more casual. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I don't have my tie on right now, so
I,
thing.
the meeting I was in earlier, it was the BVAL meeting. So it's principals, like, all the principals in the East Side and like all like other places for all the BVAL. But one of my fellow East Side principals, he was wearing a tie. And I was like, I haven't seen that, all year. What are you doing? And he's like, oh, they had a meeting for incoming 8th graders. He's like, I've got to look like a principal today. So yeah, definitely a new world. So what I thought I might do, if you guys don't mind, I have a presentation of grade distribution, comparing the first semester of last year to the first semester of this year. So really looking over and comparing the grades from last year when we were in person versus this year with distance learning, and seeing the impact. I think it's kind of interesting So I wanted to briefly show it to you guys, if you will humor me and you don't mind. Let me share my screen again. This will just take a minute. Hold on, I gotta get everything out of the way. Okay, can you guys see this? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, how this is broken down is this right here is our overall semester 1 grade comparison. And then it's broken down by subject area. It's broken down by like our main subject area. So it doesn't have like all the electives, but it has like math, English, science, and so on. And typically when we look at data and grade, especially with grade data, what I like to do is break it down. Like I show the overall, and then we show our Hispanic population and our Asian population, because the Hispanic and Asian students are our 2 largest subgroups at Piedmont Hills. We have other subgroups, but these are the 2 biggest. And so what's interesting about this is, and there's been a lot of, there was a really like major article that came out locally in the news, I think it was back in like November, about how kids, like the number of kids failing is like so much higher. And even within the district, there's been conversations at the district level that, our number of D's and F's are so much higher this year. Then interesting being, the principal at Piedmont, because anecdotally, what I've been hearing from teachers is that their F's and their D's and F's haven't been that drastically different. And so what was interesting, and when we actually pulled this data, because we had to wait till the semester was officially over to pull the real data, is this showed that it's true, that we don't see a drastic difference. There is, our F's did overall slightly increase, primarily with our Hispanic students, where it went from 11% in 2019 to 16% in 2020. What's interesting is the A's, however, also increased. And so really this is a trend you're going to see throughout with, oops, I went too far. So here's math. Math, this was super interesting to me because, as a principal and listening to all the parents, math is usually our department that we get the most complaints about. Their F's in math actually went down. So that was interesting to me. It did increase by 1% for our Asian students, but it went down by 4% for our Hispanic students. And again, the A's actually really jumped for both the Hispanic and the Asian students. So I thought this was interesting. You see science is pretty much, for the F's exactly the same. You do see the increase in A's in science, actually a pretty big increase in A's in science between the 2 years. Slight increase in the D's. I think one thing, is talking with my science teachers, it felt like as a department, science was like, we're not going to be doing F's this year. So I can't say that universally, but it did seem like a common trend from several science teachers that I talked to. And then here you have English. English, there is a slight increase in F's, but again, that trend of the increase in A's. And so I think what you see a lot of, is you see kind of with our data, kids that are like jamming with distance learning and they're doing everything that they needed to do and they're getting, the A and like, it's great. And then you have other students that it's just not working at all. Where the kids in the middle, which are our B's and C's and even our D's, they that's a much smaller number. Here is social studies. Social studies is interesting in that this was one subject area where there was actually a pretty dramatic increase in the number of F's. and not as large of an increase in the A's. So those are oops, I'm going the wrong way. Those are conversations that I'll be having with the social studies department. I'm like, because it's not, compared to the whole school, this one is standing out a little bit to me. World language also kind of a similar thing. And what's going on with world language. So these are conversations that I'll have with these various departments. And then this last chart is just looking at our freshmen. So the freshmen from last year compared to the freshmen this year. We always like to look at freshmen and really, all the grades are obviously really important, but really paying attention to freshmen and how they do in that first semester. How freshmen do in their first semester of high school is really indicative of how they're going to do the rest of high school. And so if they find success in that first semester of high school, then they've really set themselves up to be successful throughout high school. But if they are really struggling in that first semester, then they're going to struggle throughout. So this is something that we really try to pay attention to. The good news is, you don't see a drastic difference. What I found actually really exciting with this is, we have, and you guys probably picked up on it, there's a huge disproportionality between our Asian population and our Hispanic population. And that if you look, especially if you combine the A's and B's, typically our Asian students, about 90% of our students are getting A's and B's. Whereas with Hispanic students, it's somewhere in the 50%. That's a huge, huge discrepancy. But I looked at this comparison from last year to this year that, our Hispanic students are doing slightly better. Hispanic freshmen are doing slightly better. And so that it's not that much better, but it cheered me up a little bit that hopefully that's a trend that we can increase with. Okay, so those are my slides. I just wanted to kind of put that out there and share it because we had this data. I shared it in our school site council meeting yesterday afternoon. And so I wanted to just share that with all of you guys. I don't know if you have any comments or anything that you wanted to talk, if you had anything, any reactions to that. One thing I wanted to add with this, when we talk about the Fs, something that came up last week in the school board meeting, and I haven't said anything. I've known for about a month that this was coming, but I wanted it to be presented at the school board meeting first. So the idea and the discussion happened last week of while we are in distance learning, having a district policy that there's no Fs, that instead we have no pass. So on the transcript, rather than the F, it will say an NP, which means no pass. This is it was a discussion last week. The district is putting together a resolution for the board, and the board is going to vote on it on, today is a special board meeting, so not today. It's actually going to be next Thursday, 1 week from today. The board meeting on January 28th is when the resolution will be presented and voted on by the board. Let me explain to you what that means, an F versus a no pass. In the terms of a student and what they have to do, if you get a no pass, you still have to repeat the class to get the credit. If you want to, like if you got a no pass in Spanish 1, for example, or math or something like that, where you have to pass one level to get to the next level, you are still going to have to repeat the class to get to the next level. The big thing that the no pass does, is the advantage to the student, is it doesn't affect the GPA. With a GPA, an F on a GPA is a huge drag on the GPA. And so this is an effort from the school district to, acknowledge that learning in distance, our learning environment this year, distance learning, is not ideal for some of our students, and some of them have really, really struggled. We can see, with the number of A's and B's that we've had as a school this year, we have some students that are doing fine. but we definitely have students that are really, really struggling, and that this has not been a good learning environment. And so this is an effort to say, okay, you're not going to have that like long term, if you're a freshman or sophomore or any grade level, that you got an F on your transcript and you're going to be suffering that through the rest of high school, you know, that F you got this year in distance learning is going to be dragging you down. This takes that away, that it's not going to be overall affecting your GPA. But like I said, the student, you didn't get credit for the class. You're still going to have to repeat that class if it's required for graduation, and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I'm assuming you guys as parents like that idea and think it's a good idea. I don't anticipate that the school board is going to have a problem with it. I do anticipate that they are going to vote to approve this policy. But if it's something that you as a parent feel strongly about, I encourage you to actually send an email to the school board saying that you like the policy, that they always like to hear from parents. So I'm going to open this up, you know, if anybody has comments. I just blasted a lot of data and information to you guys. I will say, look, I'll go back to the chat. When Lan put in the chat, it would be awesome if teachers still posted homework, schoolwork on Google Classroom. That will help students organize their work easier and will help the parents know what's going on in the school too. I think Google Classroom is one of those things that we'll be able to keep. They will, but I think they'll keep using it. And that was something the Google Classroom thing is something I'm so proud of our staff about. You know, we had conversations about this in different various committees back in the spring, you know, in April and May, and looking at like how the spring was going, and like looking and knowing that we're going to like still be in this and start the school year. At that time, I don't think we realized we were going to be spending the whole school year in distance learning, but we knew we would be starting in distance learning. And so just knowing that if teachers use Google Classroom, it would be so much easier for the students and for the parents, and that it would just make life so much easier. And so we did a huge push to train all of our staff on how to use Google Classroom. And really, I mean, it was one of those things, because I can't, as a principal, force them to use it, but I can strongly encourage, and I did strongly encourage. And I think, honestly, I feel like 95% of our teachers are using it, and that's just, it's been gratifying. It's been really, really great. And so I think that, you know, people who hadn't used it before and then are now using it do see the benefit of it and like actually really like it. And I think teachers will continue to use it even if they're in person, because it is so much easier. It is so much easier for students to turn in their work and for teachers to have it all there. The advantages to a teacher, you know, because you always had times where kids were like, no, I turned that in, I threw it on your desk, you lost it. You know, if you have kids turn, I mean, Mr. Campbell and I used to be teachers, and like totally like, kids like, no, I put it in the basket. And you're like, well, I can't find it. So, and then you have these questions like, what happened? When you turn work in via Google Classroom, it's right there. It's time stamped. You can like see everything. It's amazing. So I think teachers will continue to use it. And I agree that for the parents, it's super helpful to see what's going on and having it all right there. I know with my own kids, and as a parent, being able to see like, this is what the work is and this is what needs to, how it gets turned in and that sort of thing, it's super helpful. Any other questions, comments? When can parents set up an account to access Infinite Campus? We did talk about that at the beginning of the school year, and I have to go back and look and talk to the IT department to see if they ever figured that out, because I know the setting up of the parent accounts, they kind of dropped it because it was super clunky and very messed up and it wasn't really working. And So let me follow up on that. I'm gonna write myself a note because I think we all kind of forgot about it. So let me follow up on that. Okay, so clarifying the first part of the GPA. So there is still a GPA for first semester. It's just if a student failed a class, what is going to happen is the district is going to just kind of automatically change any Fs from the first semester. And it basically what the resolution says is grades during distance learning. So assuming we're spending all of the second semester on distance learning, which we probably will, then it would include second semester too. So Fs would be a no pass. And so you don't have, because an F is like, you know, a 4-point scale GPA, F is a 0. So that's what that means. For students who struggled in the first semester and got Ds or Cs, if they do better in the second semester in sciences, will the second semester grade be considered more? So typically when, and I'm assuming, Ping, you're talking about with colleges, typically colleges tend to look at second semester grades. In some cases, like particularly in math and world language, because those are courses where skills really build. And so if you do better in second semester, that means you have mastered the skills that were taught in first semester. The second semester grade, we use the term validates. Second semester grade validates the first semester grade. So if they got a D first semester in, say, Spanish 2, and then they get a C second semester, that C will validate the first semester grade. It doesn't change the grade on the transcript, but what it says is, what it means is the college is going to say, yes, even though you had a D first semester, you have successfully completed the grade, because the second semester grade has more importance. That's not true for every subject area. It is true for math and world languages. You know, there might be some cases, you know, where some teachers sometimes will make an agreement with students. Okay, if you do better second semester, I will change your first semester grade. That's up to an individual teacher. That's an agreement that an individual teacher makes with the student. So that's not something that's done as a policy. Teachers are free to do that though. Usually they will, you know, have some sort of restrictions and like, you know, some sort of deal with that. For AP exams this year, is there a chance students go back to school to take it, or is it probably still online? I have no idea. I think College Board, they haven't said. I think that they are hoping that students would be able to test in person. But you know, it is January 21st. And I just don't see things drastically changing. So it probably will still be online. College Board has not said though. You know, College Board is interesting. I think you guys might have seen in the news that they just did away with the essay portion of the SAT. They just did away with the SAT subject tests. And so it's kind of, you know, I think College Board is really struggling because they've been trying to figure out how to do the tests online. The test security issue is a big issue. You know, last year when they did the AP test online, the tests were significantly shorter, because AP tests are typically a 4-hour test. And I think all of the AP tests were an hour. And so they have not said what they're going to do. As we get more information on testing, I'll let you guys know what's going on with that. Right now, there's not a lot of information that has come up, you know, particularly with the AP test. If you are the parent of a junior, the state of California says that it has said that they do want to go forward with giving the SBAC this year. You know, last year it was canceled due to the pandemic. They've said that they want to do it this year, but how that's going to work. You know, it's interesting with the SBAC is the SBAC is an online test. It's always been given on computers. We just did it in the classroom where everybody was on a Chromebook. So I guess theoretically you could have students do it at home on their computer, but again, you have test security issues. And so it'll be interesting to see how that works. But like I said, as I have information, I will share it with you guys. I just don't have information right now. So if students do worse in second semester, like from an A to a B, will be counted against them more. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind that in terms of colleges, now, yeah, like a B or a C, obviously with the GPA isn't as great as an A, but in terms of colleges and how they view grades, like it's successful completion of a course is a C or better. Okay, so from an A or a B, you know, yeah, okay, it affected their GPA, but not in terms of completion of the course. And so when colleges examine a transcript, they kind of look at successful completion of courses as one thing, and then like the GPA is a separate thing. Where it would be counted against them and be a big deal is if they got a D or an F the second semester. That's where it's going to be a big deal. Moving to an A or B isn't going to be that big of a deal. It's because a D or an F would be considered not successful completion of the course. So that's where it becomes an issue. So question, will there be seasons games for spring sports? Why? That was the meeting I was in earlier. Hold on, let me find, let's see if I can pull that up for you guys. I'm going to put it in my email, but this weekend, this chart, but you guys can have a sneak preview if I can find it. Hold on, I've got 9,000 tabs up. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. That was so like I said, I was in a BVL meeting this morning right before I jumped into this room. So we were discussing it. Okay, here we go. Let me share my screen again. Okay, you guys can see this. It says Blossom Valley Athletic League. Yes. Okay. I'm assuming it's a yes. So
Yes, we can see it.
okay, great. So I know the information that we had I had given out in the beginning of the year said there was 2 seasons. So what they've done is they've actually changed that because we were supposed to start season 1. I think practice was supposed to start back in December with games starting, I think last week was actually when games were supposed to start.
First week of January.
Yeah, so obviously that hasn't happened. I actually just the other day deleted because we had on our calendar like the schedules and all the games. I just deleted all of them the other day because I was like, well, this shouldn't be on our calendar because it's not happening. So this is the new proposed from CCS and CIF of when seasons were going to start. And so basically what they've done is interesting is they went back to 3 seasons, but each season is 8 weeks. And so what they've done is they've said, okay, within a tier, like where we are in the county and like with a tier, is this sport allowed to start? So you have the purple, which we are in a purple tier right now, and then red, and then orange, and then yellow. So generally how they divided this up is the less contact that a sport has, the more likely they are to start. So cross country, for example, is a no contact sport. So that can start if we're still in the purple tier. We don't have field hockey at Piedmont, so we don't have to worry about that. Hold on, let me keep going to basketball because this is just the top part. So in season 1, you have cross country, field hockey, which we don't have to worry about, football, girls volleyball, and water polo. Actually, we don't offer at Piedmont either. So what this means is in February 22nd, this is when these sports can start practicing depending on the tier. So if we're still in the purple tier on February 22nd, football and the girls volleyball can't start practicing. The sport cancellation date is March 8th. So meaning we're still in purple tier in March 8th, then the sport's going to be canceled. These asterisks mean on some of the sports like girls volleyball and then water polo too, they're going to push to a different season. Football, they're not going to push to a different season. So if March 8th comes around and we're still in the purple tier, then football is just not happening. Let me talk about football real quick and then we'll get to the others. Football is really a complicated sport. It's a very expensive sport. And with football, and there's more, and so this entire document I'm actually going to include in my email this weekend. So, you know, you guys will get this. But football, and it has this explanation past about football and like, you know, kind of different what they've been saying with that. The big thing about football, you know, is the reconditioning of the football equipment. Typically we send, because all of the football equipment, all the pads, the helmets and everything, we have to send out every year to get reconditioned. And usually like, it's like we're sending it out this time of year so that it comes back in time for practice to start in August. If it gets pushed back too late, there's all these companies that do this have said that there's no way that they're going to do that, which is why football is a little bit different. And so then you have your other seasons. Season 2, and each of the seasons is 8 weeks. So again, purple for the second season is boys golf, swimming, boys tennis, and girls tennis. Again, these are no contact sports, so less of a risk. Orange is badminton, boys soccer, and then girls soccer. And then you get down here to the bottom, where we have some more tiers. The purple will be girls golf and the track and field. The red is baseball. We don't have lacrosse, so we don't have to worry about that. And then softball. Orange is boys volleyball. And then yellow, it's interesting that basketball is in yellow. You know, I think with the difference, because football obviously is a heavy contact sport, but you've got all those pads and like, I don't know if there's like the idea is like that's a little bit, whereas basketball, like you're all sweaty and like right up on top of each other. Same with wrestling. So basketball, we have to be in the yellow tier for basketball to go. So everything's been delayed. It's really, you know, we'll see what happens in the next couple months with the tiers. And so a lot of this is not just the leagues saying this is what's going to happen, but it's really dependent on the state and the counties and health regulations and where we are and what we're allowed to do, because that supersedes anything that CCS or CIF is going to say. Questions about this? Again, like I said, I'm going to include this document in my emails this weekend for everybody to look at. I know this is just a brief sharing, but okay, stop sharing. Okay, so we just have a couple more minutes. I don't know if you guys have any more questions or comments, anything that you're worried about or wondering about.
When will you know for sure how next year is going to look? Are we
I
looking at the end of summer or middle of summer?
I anticipate we would know before that. So a lot of that's going to depend on the vaccine program. The state of California has said that all educators are in tier 1B. Right now we're in tier 1A for vaccinations. Tier 1B, I think it's predicted to start in the next couple of weeks, like basically the first week of February. And I know the hope is that all educators and people who work in education will get vaccinated. And then the idea is that we can start opening the schools up. You may see that come the end of the school year that we are opening up a lot more. If, when we talk about the sports, if we're in the yellow tier and basketball is going in April and May, that's a good indication that school's going to start in August. So I think these next couple months are going to be super important on what's happening. Are we getting to a point where the levels are lowering and the people are, getting vaccinated and things are getting better and we can start opening up? That's going to be a good indication. I know our priority as a school, and I know this is true for the district also, we really want to be able to offer some sort of in-person graduation for the seniors. That is a goal of mine. And I know it's a goal of the superintendents, and I don't know, even if it's like we're having to split the senior class into like different groups of like, 50 at a time or something, whatever we have to do. I would love to really be able to offer some sort of in-person graduation. So that's a goal. So I think, Virginia, and answer your question, I don't really have a clear answer. It really kind of looks like, let's look and see how the spring is going. If we're still like in the purple tier and like, things are like the way they are right now, where it's really, really super bad. And like the numbers, though they are saying that the numbers are starting to stabilize, which is good, and go down a little bit. If we're still like this in May, ooh, that's bad. I mean, God, I really hope that that's not where we're at. So I think as the spring goes on, it's going to be a lot clearer where we're at. I know with our district, East Side was one of the first districts in the area to make the call of like, this is how we're going to start the school year. And they made that call in June. So I don't think it's going to be late summer. East Side is very, one thing I would say about the district is that they've been very good about like, no, we're going to like, this is how it's going to be. And so it wouldn't be a last minute thing. Okay.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So when will the one-on-one counseling meetings start? Yes, they start next week. They start on Monday, which is the 25th, right? Yeah, Monday is the 25th. So juniors who are going to be, in our mind, we start thinking of them as seniors because they're the seniors to be, they go first. So they're that first week. And then the next week are our current sophomores who will be juniors. And then the week after that, which is the week of February 8th, that's going to be the current freshmen to be sophomores. So that's pretty much how they map it out. So yes, it starts next week, and then the one-to-one meetings basically go from next week to when we have our February break. Okay. All right, well, thank you guys. This was actually a really nice conversation. You had some great ideas. I loved the, doing office hours via Zoom for next year. So thank you so much. I don't remember what our topic is next week off the top of my head. Let me see if I can find it real quick before I let you go. Next week, Miss Gunter is going to be back, and we're going to talk about teenagers and dating. Ooh, it's a good topic. So be prepared for that. All your questions about teenagers and dating, just in time for Valentine's Day. So thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.